Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host for hashtag Secure the Grad, and my name is Evodia Muhanyani. To the tribe that's been with us for the past 38 episodes since 2021, welcome back. And for those of you who are joining us for the exactly first time, where have you been? But you know what they say, there's a right time and right place for everything. We're excited that you get to join us today. Well, today we're speaking about careers as well as financial literacy. Two of the most important things, not just as important to secure the grad, also important to secure that bag. Now, we know that choosing a career path can be one of the most exciting but yet daunting exercises that one get to uptake. Remember, the world is almost your oyster when you're in your 20s or even your 30s while studying. You have a couple of majors and you're sometimes still undecided, but there comes a time when you finally have to make that choice. We also know with the world of work having changed quite drastically since COVID-19, the reality is that work has become a little bit borderless, not just localized, but also global, meaning that you don't just get to work in the Free State or in Gauteng or even in Cape Town or just somewhere in Africa. You could literally work anywhere in the world with all the expansions and changes that have happened. What that means is that a little bit of complexity is added to your choice because there are financial things you have to think about or financial impact around whether you move and accept that dream job that you've always been longing for. But ladies and gents, that's why we have this webinar for you today. And I'm quite excited to introduce you also our lineup. But I'm going to hold my horses just a little bit. If you already joined us and your chats are open, please remember to tell us where you're joining us from and how are you feeling a little bit today? Look, in the Free State where we base currently, it is a bit cold, but also a bit moody because then the sun is shining and then it's raining and then it's cold. So we're hoping that the weather is good to us for the rest of the day. If you are watching this live recording from anywhere of our platforms, remember also that you can continue to engage with us via our social media platforms. Ladies and gents, you will also notice that your microphones as well as your cameras have been disabled, and that will be for the duration of the webinar while our speakers are still in conversation with us. However, when we move to our Q&A segment, then we'll ensure that your microphones are enabled so that we can have a conversation, that you can have a conversation rather with any of our speakers. Also, we want to ask that if you want to be eligible to our lucky draw that's taking place at the end of the webinar, then you need to join using your name and surname if you're a University of the Free State student. Alternatively, you can also join using your student number. That will ensure that as you engage with us throughout the webinar, that you stand a chance of winning one of our very cool prizes. One of the features that we've also included is a poll. So as part of our engagement, we'll be running a few polls. You'll see a pop-up on your screen with a question and multiple options that you can select. So just read the question. I'll be that kind to read the question for you. All you need to do on your side is to click the option that best represents your answer and then click on the submit button and we'll see what you have to say. That's part of our conversation today. Ladies and gents, also what we have next up will be our speakers. We'll be introducing our speakers to you. Very excited. These are, listen, we don't bring bo fly by night. We make sure that we bring the best of the best of the best in the industries in different spaces. I'm going to switch up my intro a little bit today. Normally what I would do is I would ask our speakers one by one to introduce themselves and then get the conversation going. So today I'm going to ask all our speakers to put up or to switch on rather their cameras so that our audience can see who they are. I know many of you are still joining us as we go along. So let's see. So welcome to our lovely team or a dynamic panel. I'm going to ask that our technical team just also spotlights them for me so that we can see who is already on for today. So ladies and gents, I want to introduce to you, we have Professor Mikateko Mathebula, who's an associate professor at the Center for Development Studies, also a UFS alum. We have Olebogeng Mojanaga, who's also from Standard Bank, and she is acquisitions manager for professional banking. La bona, guys, ne? La bona. Re tlisitse batho ba ditjhelete. So we have our Moreki in our webinar today. Olebogeng, a huge welcome, and we're very excited to have you. We also have Mbali Moiketsi, who is the study abroad coordinator at the University of the Free State. We told you about global opportunities. So if you're looking for opportunity to leave the country, not because but also because, you know, you want to go make an impact and show the rest of the world that Africa is ready to make change. Mbali, welcome. And we're looking forward also to having conversation with you. We also have our student voice, who's Lebogang Magodielo. He's a senior tutor in ASTEP, but also former chairperson of APSIP, and that's one of our student associations. Recently graduated, was looking quite dapper at his graduation. So a quick one, 30 seconds. And I'm going to start from Mikateko, then we move to Olebogeng, then we move to Mbali, and we move to Lebogang. We're going to end off with Lebogang. So a quick one, Olebogeng, let's start with you. What did you have for breakfast?
Shoot, nothing. I didn't have breakfast today.
My goodness. Okay, Secure the Grad is running a wellness webinar, so I think you're going to have to join that one in 2 weeks' time. Mikateko, what was the last activity you did before 5 p.m. yesterday?
Oh, I can't remember, but I know shortly after 5 p.m. I was gathering the logs to start the fire because I knew that come 6 o'clock when the sun goes down, it's going to be cold. So that's what I remember.
Great. And Tato, from your side, what is the last word you remember learning?
Wait, the last word I remember learning, quite frankly, was transformative constitutionalism, which essentially means bringing about the transformation or using the constitution to transform the lives of us, you know, the people of South Africa. So essentially, transformative constitutionalism is what the last word that I learned.
Ladies and gents, you're in good hands. Mbali, let's hear, what is the last country you visited?
Oh, I was in America last year, so I got an opportunity to be in America for a professional program. So that's the last country out of South Africa that I was in.
Ladies and gents, I told you that we really have a panel that is well-versed, well-traveled, and one of them has not eaten, so be nice to them, okay? We don't want to get Olebogeng hangry in this process. So make sure that also, Bonolo, I know that you've got nice vouchers happening here. If Olebogeng is a nice speaker today and she answers all the questions, we might just send her one of those prizes. So ladies and gents, for today, we're going to get all the introductions in your segment of the conversation, and we're going to kick off our conversation with Mikateko. In the meantime, for the rest of our panelists, you're welcome to switch your camera off, and should there be questions on the chat that come up, you are more than welcome also to engage with our audience. Mikateko, so I've known you personally for quite a long time, I think back in your student days, and what a journey it has been. One of the questions that we have for you as part of the introduction, just if you can tell us, what do you do in terms of your role? Secondly, what does a typical day or week look like?
Thanks, Evodia, and thanks for having me here. I'm quite excited, and I hope that some of the insights that I share in responding to these questions will be helpful for people to reflect on and plan for their own careers. So I'm an associate professor at the Higher Education and Human Development Research Program, where I primarily work in the research group to conduct research in the field of higher education, which means I tend to work with young people, asking questions about their access, participation, and outcomes of higher education, and how the process of being in the higher education system ultimately shapes their lives and also influences their aspirations, their well-being, and so on. So it's a lot to do with young people and accessing higher education. It's very difficult to say what a typical day looks like, because an academic career means that you have often quite a bit of autonomy, which means that you have control over how you plan your day. And because the tasks range from research, to supervision, to public engagement activities, to sitting on research committees at the university, it can be quite difficult to figure out how to structure your day. So it really depends on how you plan it. I try to do bits and pieces of all of that type of work, and then sometimes leave out a specific day for writing, because publishing is one of the key functions of an academic.
Listen, that doesn't sound like a lot of autonomy by the sound of things. Very interesting. Mika, what do you find rewarding as part of your job?
I would definitely say the research itself, working with people, immersing yourself in the process of understanding people's lives, how they interpret their reality, understanding and questioning one's own assumptions about reality, about the process of higher education, about whether or not institutions that are meant to improve people's lives actually do that. But it really is, I think the most fulfilling thing is working with people. The relational aspect of the work is the most fulfilling, because it helps you to tap into your humanity. It keeps you humble. The more you get to hear about and learn about people's stories and so on, and you get to kind of develop your empathy. And that's what I mean with tapping into your humanity. Another thing that I find very fulfilling is supervision, because you get to work with and learn from somebody who's following a similar path as I did, as you know, when I was doing my PhD, and to see the evolution of thought, of progress, of the development as a person, intellectually and otherwise. And of course, once graduation day comes and you get to meet the family members of the people that you've been working with over years and years, it's such a reminder that this process of higher education and securing a degree, and in my case, working with people who ultimately secure a PhD, is meaningful not only to the individual, but for their families and the communities that they come from. So those are two aspects of my work that I really find fulfilling.
That sounds amazing. I think quite a lot of us could do with a little bit of hope. I think your work, by the sound of it, brings a lot of hope to the fact that, change is still something that exists. Mika, so you've had quite an interesting career, and one that many people could look at as, big roles at a very young age. Can you talk to us a little bit about your career journey and some of these key milestones or key achievements that have also shaped your career path?
Okay, so I'm going to try and keep it short, but if there's something that you would like to prompt me on, just let me know, because it's a very difficult question to answer, in the sense that although one could say I've achieved a lot in a relatively young age, much of it has to do with luck, and then some of it has to do with taking up opportunities in life when they're presented to you. And then being able to discern when you've got someone in your corner who is willing to support you and be a champion for your personal development, and so being able to take the advice that you're given. When I started my academic career, it wasn't an ambition or a very clearly set out goal. What I knew is that I was passionate and very interested in the process of research. So I knew when I finished my undergraduate degree that I would definitely want to study further, because the more I studied, the more I learned new things and the more I got curious. So there was quite an intrinsic motivation to continue studying for me. And I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about our fellow speaker today when she talks about studying abroad, because I had the opportunity to do that. So I've always been a curious person who, when an opportunity like that comes up, I say, well, if I can pursue my postgraduate studies and do so abroad, let me go and see how other people are doing it there. What can I learn from a different context, and so on. And during my time abroad, I had the opportunity to be funded. So I did have a partial scholarship, which allowed me to pay for my tuition fees and so on. But because it was partial, I had to work on the side. And the work that I chose was to work as a research assistant at the university where I was studying. And eventually I landed up a research assistant post where I was working with a research group that was doing some really fascinating research. they were looking at the question of why people work beyond retirement age. And they were comparing the situation in Germany to what happens in the UK. And I was sitting there with these headphones and a laptop in front of me. I would listen to the interview recordings and I would transcribe them. So I'd be typing them out. And I was very fascinated by what I was learning. And I thought to myself, this is really cool. I mean, if I can get paid to ask questions about life, about processes, about what happens in countries, about structure and policy and so on, I said I could imagine myself doing this. So it felt like a natural progression after my master's degree abroad for me to pursue a PhD. And I just happened to have the luck of landing a PhD scholarship with a research group where I had a fantastic mentor who's been very instrumental in giving me the kind of advice that I need or needed in order to carve out my career in academia.
Mika, so people generally think, or there's an assumption that studying a degree in education equals a career in academia. What did you study? What was your undergrad qualification? And how did you decide to switch?
Okay, again, very interesting. So I kind of knew that I'm interested in things that have to do with people on the individual level in terms of how psychology works and personality and things like that, but also at the societal level and how people interact and how these interactions shape who we are culturally and otherwise. So I went for a Bachelor of Social Sciences degree. Just a straight up, very simple Bachelor of Social Sciences, specializing sort of in human and societal dynamics. So I did courses like sociology, psychology, industrial psychology, and criminology, which is a very generic type of degree. So I knew that when I then move on to postgraduate study, I'd have to focus on something a little bit more specific, choosing one of those majors. And because the Faculty of Economics and Management Sciences had a collaboration agreement, I think, with the University of Bremen at the time, I chose to pursue a course that was supported through that exchange because it was an interfaculty agreement. So that was a practical decision. I started off sort of with general interest and passion, and then for the postgraduate, I went with a more practical choice. For my PhD, again, it was a combination of the two. So I knew that I wanted to be able to do research that compared learning experiences in Germany and in South Africa. And I found out about this higher education and human development research program. When I inquired and they told me what the research group was about, I could see myself doing research in that area. So I kind of combined passion with practicality in terms of the opportunity that was in front of me. And so I ended up with a PhD in development studies, although I primarily work in the field of higher education. So it's quite a broad mix of social sciences, disciplines, and the humanities, I guess.
I want to say to our audience that's listening, if you're a humanities student and you think, or you follow the rhetoric of there are no jobs out there for humanities students, then I think you better listen up. The world is literally hungry for students with degrees in humanities. So you spoke a bit about choices between passion and practicality. In many of the conversations, there seems to be this tension between, do I follow my passion or do I follow what's practical? And what's practical could mean I'm close to home, or what's practical could mean what brings income to support myself, to support my family, or what's practical in terms of how quick I can rise up the ladder. What is your take around the importance of choosing either passion or practicality? Or can we even choose? Maybe that's another question.
Yeah, and it's a very important question because I've been seeing debates around the kind of motivation that we give young people for how they make decisions about their careers. And often people will say, look, passion is nice to have, but you need to focus on what will definitely secure you employment. So be selective about what you study and so on. There is obviously an element of truth to that because there are factors in the labor market that are beyond our control, and often there's certain demands in terms of skills and the kind of labor and training that is needed in industry. So I'm not discounting that point. However, my personal experience has shown that leading with the passion can make room for practicality as well. So it's not necessarily an either or. The ideal is to try and strike a balance between the two. So I was thinking first and foremost, what can I imagine myself doing? What can I imagine myself doing well? Being able to apply my intellect, my interest, my passion, what can drive me? Because of course, once you kind of choose a career, you might find yourself in it for 10, 15, 20, 40 years. So it can end up being a lifetime commitment, although there is room to move laterally across institutions or perhaps to change disciplines. But I don't think it would be wise to completely put aside the importance of passion, because you will need something that drives you. And as much as I love my work, it is demanding, it is stressful. And so the passion keeps me going on days where I feel a bit sluggish or I feel tired. There is an intrinsic motivation that drives me to get up and do the work day after day, year after year.
So in essence, there's a cost to either, but there are also benefits, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an either or situation.
Yes, exactly.
So, Mika, you have had an opportunity to work locally, even in the continent, but also globally. You've had quite a big global exposure. What would you say are possible career opportunities that are available, particularly for students that are studying qualifications in the humanities, and particularly for students who are interested in making social impact?
I think that's an excellent question, because often when we think about careers and our jobs, sometimes we don't necessarily think about how the work that we do can have an impact in society or in our communities and so on. And so I would say, well, first of all, it's important to get exposure in general. If you're curious about how things work and look elsewhere, look out for opportunities where you can get to travel, even if it's to spend 3 months, 6 weeks somewhere else, to have a broader perspective on how things work, whether it's in the educational space or in the field that you might be interested in pursuing. And having conversations also with people who are from elsewhere just broadens your horizons in terms of how you think and how you look at the world. And so I think if you have a social sciences or humanities background, it's important to work to the strengths of what these degrees prepare us for, which has a lot to do with understanding things that are related to human and societal dynamics. So people who work in areas where they are interested in impacting communities could be community-based organizations that are working from the ground up. It could be non-profit organizations. It could be non-governmental organizations. But you also have government institutions, whether it's the departments for social development. You've got higher education institutions, and not just universities, but there's a range of institutions, formal and informal, grassroots types of organizations, and ones that are more established or maybe work in more traditional ways. But the key sort of issue is to inquire. So if I'm interested in something to do with community impact, I'm going to try and find out. I'll ask around, have conversations with people who I have access to. Who do you know who is working in the space of community development or gender development or working with young people to empower them? And then after making those inquiries, set up a meeting, have a conversation with them, find out what they're doing. So the opportunities are not always in obvious places, but there is so much work that's being done around empowerment, community development, things that are actually making a difference. And you don't only have to look at these sort of the big and famous and very popular institutions. There is very important work that's being done at the grassroots level by community-based organizations and so on, where I think there's plenty of opportunities for meaningful work.
Let's isolate your experience in academia. This is quite an interesting space where a lot of young people are not necessarily imagining as a sexy career option to choose from, but you have made it look quite grand, accessible, and something that one can desire. Talk to us a little bit about your journey leading up to your professoriate. How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the beginning, I did say luck is a huge factor, and I meant that. Some people think when I say that I'm trying to be humble, I'm not. It's an honest reflection on the fact that so much of where I am right now has to do with other people who they were at the right place. Maybe I happened to show up at the right time, something like that, but there's serendipity in these things. And so when I say I was lucky, I mean, if I go back to what I said about landing in this higher education and human development research program, I had a mentor who was interested in building capacity of women, in building the capacity of Black women. So when I was being supervised during my PhD, she already started to ask questions about where do you see yourself? What would you like to do? So I didn't have an answer, that's very neat in terms of a 5-year plan. But I said, I'm passionate about research. I can really see myself doing this in the long run. She said, okay, well, in that case, you need A, B, C. So she spelled it out for me. She told me it's important then to publish, for example. It is important to make sure that you have a minimum number of publications by this time, let's say 5 to 8 years from now. She explained to me it was important to get an NRF rating. That's the National Research Foundation of South Africa. She explained to me why having a rating would matter for when you apply for things like promotion. And so we talked about a publication plan. We talked about when I might apply for rating. And then at the time when I was nearly ready for that, she sent me examples. She sent me an example of her own rating application. She sent me examples that were successful for grants, for NRF rating, for promotions. So I was working with examples in front of me. I wouldn't say that I've had a blueprint, but the scaffolding was there. So I didn't have to do it all by myself from the beginning. I had somebody who was kind of leading the way. And so I followed those steps, followed the advice, of course, having to make my own decision in between, such as, am I going to publish a book from my thesis, or am I going to go for journal articles? What kind of projects would I like to apply for? Who do I want to work with? So you still have to make decisions on your own. But I followed advice, and I could see from my mentor that she's had an incredible career. I'm talking about Professor Melanie Walker. And so I said, why doubt the advice that she's giving me, because I can see that she's got my best interest at heart. So I'm here not because of my own effort. I'm not necessarily smarter than anybody else. I don't necessarily work harder than anyone else, but I was lucky enough to be able to recognize that I had someone in my corner who was interested in supporting my career, and I ran with it.
I could webinar that last section all by itself. And I think one of the key messages that we've been driving in Secure the Grad in many of our webinars is the power and almost luck that comes with mentorship and sponsorship and really people who have your back. In wrapping up our conversation, I want to ask, what advice would you give to undergraduate or even postgraduate? And I know some people who join our webinars or watch the recordings are early career or even mid-career people who want to switch, careers and just decide, what, heck, I'm going to start all over again. What advice would you give them, especially if they're unsure about which career path to pursue?
You're coming with all the difficult questions today, Vodia. Yes, although that doesn't mean I know everything. Again, I try to answer from...
We don't even know what NQF level that is. You don't even qualify for NQF levels anymore.
Yeah, so I would ask for advice. When I'm unsure, I tend to ask for advice. I seek out advice. So, for example, we had a colleague in our research group who pivoted, and she decided to leave academia and work in the field of education and research, but not for a higher education institution at all. And so before she left, I asked to have coffee with her, and I had an honest conversation. I said, why are you leaving? Where are you going to go? What are the differences in the kind of salary that you're going to earn? Why did you want to leave? And what future do you see for yourself? And also, do you think I'm someone who can do and pursue this academic career thing? Because I could see that she's making a decision. I'm not sure if I want to stay now because I see that she's leaving. So I ask for her advice. And that's what I would suggest that people do. If you are unsure, seek out advice. You'd be surprised at how open and candid people are willing to be if you make the time. It could be a lecturer who's at the university. Perhaps if that person, you might have heard that they run their own business, for example, and you're thinking of going the entrepreneurial route, find out if you can have a conversation with them and get advice. I think people are a lot more helpful than we give them credit for. And we all want to see each other thrive and succeed. So when you're unsure, you don't have to ponder and deliberate completely on your own. My advice would be get advice.
That is the perfect way to wrap up our conversation. Mika, there are a couple of questions for you in the chat. So because you will not be part of the Q&A segment, please feel free throughout the webinar or the duration of your stay to answer some of the questions in the chat. Ladies and gents, we're going to pivot to the money makers at Standard Bank. And Olebogeng, let's talk to you a little bit. Before we get to Lebogang, we're going to pause a bit, and our first poll has just come up on the screen. We want to know, do you know which career path you want to pursue? Is it a yes? Is it a sort of like, I think I know, but I'm still researching, or I'm completely not sure? You can click on the option that best represents your answer, click submit, and we will get it. So thank you to the 10 people that have already responded. Olebogeng, it's your turn now. Talk to us a little bit about your role at Standard Bank, and what does a typical day in a week look like? I know now and then I'd love to have your job, but let's tell the audience a little bit about why they'd want to have your job. And then lastly, what do you find most rewarding? Your microphone is still muted. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
That's better. Apologies for that. Thank you so much for having me once again. What a privilege it is to be with you this afternoon. It's truly, truly appreciated. So the question that you asked, I think you asked what my typical day of work looks like.
And your role. Let's start off with your role.
My role.
You know, some of us had a banker, we're thinking of the bank manager and or the person who's helping us, and the consultants. I don't think we know the rest of what happens. What do we mean, acquisitions manager? What's that?
Oh, cool. No, I'll definitely give you insight. So I don't know if I should say fortunately or unfortunately, I don't hold the keys to the safe.
Unfortunately.
But the role of an acquisition manager, essentially what we do is we go and hunt. So we go and hunt and look for business. And I specifically deal with young professionals, like the individuals that you have online. So that is the market that we look for, or we also caretake in my space. And a typical day of an acquisitions manager, gosh, it's not rigid, it's quite flexible, and there's some autonomy of sorts, but unfortunately, you always need to have things planned up. So you always need to plan ahead. You always need to ensure that you've got engagements for the week and you've got business churning in. And you are able to measure if you've gone and done an event or hosted potential clients. What does that in the results, what do the results then look like? Are people coming back to you? Are they interested in this offering? And then the other aspect is around the relationship banking of things. So we actually, once we've onboarded you as a client of ours, we then look after you. So that's where you will have the privilege of giving your banker a call. You know, those people that stand at Groove or at places, and then they'll be having issues and be like, let me call my banker. Yeah. So essentially,
you're that person. Let me call my banker person. Okay, guys, clearly I have not arrived yet because I'm not at the point where I'm calling my banker. Or maybe I'm with the wrong bank.
you can call me. I'm here.
I can call you.
Yes.
So, okay, you deal a lot with realities of young professionals, particularly financially. Can you talk to us about when and how one can start planning for both a career? So let me give you a scenario. We've got currently postgraduate students or final year students, and companies are going to be making offers now in May, June. It's recruitment season, and we know again December, October, November, December, up until January next year. Many of our students or even young professionals will be getting offers. When should we start planning financially or have a financial goal?
So I cannot emphasize this point. It's important to start as early as possible. So from the time that you start getting pocket money, how do you start budgeting and understanding the difference between needs and wants? Because many a times what we often see, or what I often see in my space, is that we always deal with money based on how we were brought up. So most of the psychology and the influence always comes from there, which then you understand. Sometimes personally, I can attest to that maybe that wasn't the greatest choice. So if I could just share a little bit, my mom is a firm believer that, if you see it, yeah, it's worth it, whether you have the money or not, Whereas now I've learned that actually for my financial goals and aspirations, that might not align, because it might just be a desire, it might just be a want and not a need. So it's very important to start managing your money matters as early as possible, right? Or from a young age, because that then sets you up for the time that when you start earning the big money. So if you look at typically the life cycle of a young professional, right? You will have, obviously, do your undergrad, you'll be getting a pocket money or NSFAS funding and all of that. And it's so easy to swab that money, But I'm telling you, saving money as little as, in fact, even 10 Rand, on a monthly basis, if you look at it from in the long run, it will actually be beneficial, because the luxury that you have as a student is that you've got time. Yeah. You have a lot of time. And there's something called compound interest as well, which also works to your benefit. So it's quite important to really start as early as possible. And then what then happens is, once you land a job, as an example, as a tutor, which I was fortunate to also have gone through in my years in varsity. I was a research assistant and I got paid 2,000 Rand. Guys, I literally want to shoot myself because I did not save, right? So typically now what I can tell you is that I'm learning the hard way. But now I know better. And when you know better, you do better, which is why I'm so passionate about what I do, because I think it's quite important to share this knowledge that we have and the insights that we are seeing and the realities that we are seeing on a daily basis. So very early.
Okay, so guys, it's never too late. Okay, it's
yes.
You can start now, because I'm getting nervous as we speak. But we're talking careers, and Mika kicked off the conversation talking about, making the career choice, asking questions, and recognizing opportunity when it comes your way. So what I want to hear from you is how do career choices impact one's financial future? So if I were to make a career choice now, how would that potentially impact my financial future?
Sure. I think based on Prof. Mika, what she was sharing, it's a tough one, because you then find yourself at the crossroads between pursuing passion or being practical, But I always say that sometimes pursuing passion or whatever it is, qualification that you studying towards, will not really necessarily, don't confine yourself in that space. So if I could share, believe it or not, I've got a BSc honors in agricultural economics.
And you're in banking.
And I'm in banking, and I'm a banker, right? So that's the thing I think that I realized earlier on in my studying years, that sometimes you have to take the leap of faith. Sometimes you don't necessarily also have to be picky, because you never know, that might just be the silver lining that you require, or the thing that will propel you to your next, but I'm a firm believer that because of, sometimes it might happen that you need to be practical before, whilst pursuing the purpose. Just always have the purpose, in front of you, because that's the ultimate goal. And unfortunately, the way that life works is that it's a give up and replace sometimes situation. So it might be that you're forfeiting the passion for that moment, but in terms of allowing yourself to be able to survive in this difficult economy, you might then find yourself having to, be practical and make certain practical decisions, but that ultimately this is where you want to land. And how do you then, once you're on the inside, how do you then maneuver in a way, because you know what the ultimate goal is?
Olebogeng, I wanna hinge on that, the practicality of things. So what are some of you've met quite a number of clients, from people who have just finished their honors or their masters, and they land a job, or they have an offer right in front of them, or they are thinking, shucks, I'm giving up my career right now and I'm switching. Or even they decide, I'm leaving my job to start a business. What are some of the financial realities of these scenarios that you've come across? And you're more than welcome to give us, examples of what you've seen in your line of work.
Yeah. So I think the thing that I've picked up is that the current generation are not scared to take challenges and chances and risks. Whereas with some, like personally for me, I've always really been risk averse, a bit. Everything would be calculated. And I knew, after studying, I wanted to land a job. And believe it or not, my mom is a businesswoman, but as much as I wanted to pursue, little side hustles, being the businesswoman that she is, she'd always encourage me, so long you're getting the salary, just do it in your own time. So how do you integrate the two? How do you then not get to a point where you're now leaving the one for the other? So I think what I have picked up, and which I'm really happy about with seeing with the current professionals, in our spaces, that they are finding a way to juggle the two, because they then get to make time for this business that they want. It could be over the weekend, after hours, so on and so forth. So I think it's also quite important how you manage your time, so for some, though, I must be honest, and I think this I've picked up a lot with people who get into internships or get accepted as trainees. They are most of the time really, really thrilled, because they know that this is the one step closer to achieving the goal. So I think more than anything, the thing that I'm picking up is integration of the two more than anything, as opposed to leaving the one for the other, or being in a predicament where people have to now choose between the two. How do you then also have the comfort? Because unfortunately with business, you run the risk of having people not paying you on time, so on and so forth, and that has got a ripple effect. How do you then maybe perhaps look at your salary to somewhat also supplement the business while you're waiting for certain invoices to pay?
So if I'm a student and I suddenly get a call to come and work in Cape Town, and I'm sitting in Putadichaba, Qwaqwa.
Yes.
I am an NSFAS student. Mom does not work. There's no income at home. Dad does also not work. So we don't have some financial security. What would it take for a person to be able to take up that role financially? What does it look like between saying, yes, I'm accepting this role, and moving to Cape Town till the first paycheck?
Sure. It's always a very hard one, and unfortunately, in many a times you always think of it after saying yes. And I'm being taken aback to my own personal journey as well, and I remember when I was starting out in the bank, I actually joined the bank through the graduate program, right? That was 2013. Yeah, that's how long I've been in the bank. But not doing the same role, fortunately. But I remember saying yes, and I was excited. But then because my mom is self-employed, came the time now that I had to move to Joburg, to a point where my mom did not, she hadn't gotten her payments for the past 6 months, and we just did not know what to do. And I think my mother, being my mother, was like, you know what, we are going to pray about this. Something is going to happen. And at that point in time, I was not aware of the privilege that I was actually afforded by virtue of just having that contract or that employment contract that was sent through. Because essentially, remember, that forms as security for the bank, if I can put it like that. And that's how we look at our young professionals. So we've gone as an organization to go and look at such factors, to say, some people end up forfeiting employment because of lack of funds, just to get through just that first month, because it's so tough, because there's no access to funds, which is why in my space, we particularly look at your employment contract, because that's some form of surety to the bank to say that even if the bank was to extend credit to you, you will be in a position for you to be able to pay the bank back. And trust me, we will not allow you to take 100,000 Rand out. We need to also be realistic, because we don't want to set you up for failure.
Yeah.
Right. And we really truly have those frank, honest conversations all the time, which are very important.
This is not really part of what we've prepared, but I want to ask, quite a number of our students carry debt because of maybe they moved from one institution and now they're at the UFS and they have debt from UJ that they're still trying to pay off. And by the time they qualify, they owe the bank, they owe the university, and in some cases they've been handed over to the lawyers. Are some of the factors that will then influence them in getting financial assistance in the event that they have to, for instance, relocate for a job, or they want to start, there's an opportunity to start off a business?
So there's no blanket approach to it. I think more than anything, it's on a case-by-case basis, right? Because if you would understand, in our world, we've got, one's credit profile and historic kind of like management of finances and all of that. So that also does factor into the decision making. Right. So there's no one blanket approach to say, this is cutthroat, this is what we do, it's a yes or it's a no. So it's on a case-by-case situation. I'll also just make a quick example. I know with being in varsity, I was also a culprit. You walk, I would go to Mimosa Mall, and then next thing I know, I go into sports scene, they tell me that they're giving me a clothing account. And I mean, what do I know? I'm just excited that I'll be able to get the pair of sneakers and they just want me to pay 100 Rand every month. But they're not realizing that by the time that I actually finish paying off these sneakers, they would probably be worn out, the time that it takes to pay it off. And then so on and so forth, that you also maybe forget about it, or life happens. And then you find that TFG has handed you over. What is nice is that in our space, we give such professionals grace, because we understand that you are none the wiser, and the reality is that an example is, if you go and purchase something at a store, it's not like if you stop paying them, sports scene is going to come back and say, hey, we want our pair of sneakers. No, so that it's a case-by-case basis, and we really try by all means to try and assist where we possibly can.
So Lebogang, I'm going to combine these two. Personally, for you, what's been financial habits that have helped you throughout your career? And as well, what financial advice would you then provide based on this professional but also personal experience?
Sure. I think, personally for me, hand on heart, putting money away as early as possible and as little as you possibly can. And it's also important just to diversify your portfolio. And by that, I mean, if you have 200 Rand that you are comfortable saving on a monthly basis, look at different options of putting that money in different pockets. So I'll make an example with me. There is an app called Stash by Liberty. Guys, it allows you to save as little as, I think, in fact, even R1 a day. So I'm saving 20 Rand a day. And I started this just before COVID, right? And this actually allowed me to get to a point to save up so much money that I was able to actually pay off my car quicker. So I could access that. And then the other thing was around, just looking at different portfolios to invest in. I'm not the best when it comes to, the jargon of, the equities and all of that. But I was so fortunate that I had the opportunity to have a financial advisor, and which is what we also offer with the professional banking offering, right? You don't just use a personal a financial advisor just for, retirement and all of those things. No, you ask them about such things. You go to them and then you tell them, I've got 500 Rand that I'm willing to save, but I'm already saving for my retirement annuity. Where can I possibly put this 500 Rand? They've got clever softwares and all of that will project stuff for you. If you're risk averse like me, they will see whatever it is that you possibly could invest in. But if you're willing to take the risk, there's also options as well, So really, really, I think that then leads me to the advice that I would give. Please take advantage of having the opportunity to have a banker earlier on in your career, because that person or that institution also becomes your sounding board, especially when it comes to you making financial decisions. And with the understanding that for some of you, on this line, you are generational first. You're expected to plow back at home, but sometimes it's not practical, because here you are, leaving family in Putadichaba, you've relocated to Cape Town. But in actual fact, when they told you the salary, you thought, oh, I'd be making a lot of money. But then you realize that cost of living is so high there that, you're not able to maybe deliver on what you had committed to at home, or you are not able to help as much as possible. But it's with the understanding that you also need to educate people back home to say, you know what, I thought this is how things would pan out, but they're slightly different. But please give me some time. I'm saving towards this thing, instead of trapping or finding yourself in the debt trap, all in the name of pleasing people back home.
That is a very big one. Starting, like I said to Mika, I think that's a whole nother webinar by itself, getting out of the debt trap, avoiding it as early as possible. Lebogang, for those on the call or those who are watching the report, who really want to take their financial futures or their financial literacy also a bit serious, and they're thinking, oh, this is a wake-up call. What books, podcasts, or resources would you recommend for these type of people?
Sure. Not that I'm being biased, guys, but the bank, we recently just launched a podcast. It's available on Spotify. It's called The Private Lens. And this is where actually the person who's running the podcast is actually my boss. So very young, vibrant individual, but he's actually interviewing ordinary, citizens, people who are not within the bank, and asking them how have they grown their wealth, So I think more than anything, as I listen to those, I then realize that, oh my word, I've got so much to do.
Yeah.
So really, truly, I think from a podcast perspective, I would implore you to really listen to our podcast. It's named The Private Lens.
Nice. Can I ask then, as we continue with other speakers, if you can get the link to that podcast, we can put it in the chat for us so that we can make it easily accessible.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, and we will get back to you in our Q&A segment. And there are some questions in the chat, if you can also get to them when you get a chance. So are we going to have a poll next? There we go. Our second poll is up there. How confident are you in managing your personal finances? It was quiet in the chat, so I am guessing it might be somewhat confident, I need help, or not even confident. Please click on the option that best represents your response, and then you're done. So let us move to Mbali. Mbali, take us around the world. Let us hear from you. If you can tell our audience a little bit of what does your role entail and what do you find most rewarding? So what does your role entail? Take us through a typical day or week, and what do you find most rewarding?
Thank you so much. Can I check if I'm audible?
You are audible.
Thank you. Thank you. So my role, I am the study abroad officer at the University of the Free State at the International Office. So what I do, my job entails managing scholarships, particularly scholarships. So my job is to search for the money for the students to be able to study abroad or pursue their studies abroad rather. So on a day-to-day basis, I do sourcing of these scholarships, talking to the partners that I have, arranging events to get them here, arranging sessions such as these. I'm also the marketing officer, so I do a lot of marketing on behalf of the office, also for study abroad. This is a new concept, which was, the portfolio was only formed in 2019. Where we're trying to get the UFS students, to participate in these opportunities and understand the importance of being able to study abroad. Like our first speaker has said, I'm so glad she was there to sort of, introduce and talk about these to get the students enticed. So what makes me happy, whenever a student gets the opportunity, to go on these experiences and grow their development personally as well. This really makes me happy. Whenever I get an email to say a certain student has received a scholarship, that just makes my day.
Awesome. So, Mbali, you've spoken about sourcing some of these scholarships, working with respective partners. What scholarship opportunities are available, especially the ones that are also aligned with career development opportunities?
Thank you so much for that question. Before I answer that question, because the study abroad concept is I found out that it's a foreign concept to many of our students and staff as well. So I just wanted to explain a little bit what study abroad means. So to our viewers and our callers on the line, study abroad simply means you deciding to pursue your study in a country that is outside of South Africa. So it's basically you studying in a foreign country. So I often tell students, because they laugh, because I say to them, if you right now you apply to go and study in Lesotho, you are studying abroad. So they laugh because for them, like Lesotho is just next door, and they're like, no, how can I be studying abroad? But I often say to them, if you decide to go and study in Botswana, you are studying abroad. It's a different concept. Or a student in Botswana comes to study in UFS, they are studying abroad. So what are the benefits of these? We have, Evodia, a lot of benefits to these study opportunities. I always encourage students to take them up because firstly, you get academic enrichment. Prof has spoken a lot about these, so I'm just going to brush through them. And the personal growth, she's spoken about that, building self-confidence and having a self-esteem. And lastly, professional development. I think she highlighted that the fact that you studied abroad opens up a lot of opportunities for you. I mean, career-wise. Students in the humanities thought they were only, limited to a certain, but there's a lot of opportunities once you get into this concept of studying abroad. We have a lot of opportunities at the moment. So we, as the Office for International Affairs, promote these opportunities that are aligned with the students' academic and professional goals. They come to the office, I get to advise them, we sit down and see what is it that they want for their future. So these opportunities are designed to support the academic mobility, but also to enhance the global competencies, leadership skills, and career readiness. I think one of the goals for Vision 130 is that the students, we get to produce students that are globally competitive. So for you to be able to be globally competitive, you need to participate in these opportunities. Currently, I work with a number of agencies. There's the Erasmus Plus. We have Fulbright, which is if you're interested in studying in the US. We have Hungary for those who are interested in studying in Hungary. We have DAAD, which is funding source for students who would like to see themselves in Germany. We have SANOD. SANOD is more like a Southern African, if you are interested in being in the Southern African part of the countries. We have Campus France, which is very soon it's going to open. So if you'd like to see yourself studying in France, we have the Chinese government, which is currently open. If you are interested in being in China, we have the NSMART grant, which is for Austria, not Australia, but Austria in Europe. So there's a lot of these opportunities. I have quite a few of them that are open at the moment. The Queen Elizabeth is open. The Chinese government is open. The United Kingdom, the Rhodes Scholarship is open. Erasmus Mundus, the joint masters. If you'd like to study a joint master scholarship program, it is currently open.
As UFS students, I don't think we can say there are not opportunities to see the rest of the world and to broaden our horizon. Mbali, can we talk about what are key aspects students need to consider when applying for these scholarships?
That's a very good question. So, I often ask students to come to consult. So my first question to them is like, because they often come to me and say, I'd like to study abroad. My question to them is, why? Why would you want to study abroad? And they say, I want to leave South Africa. I'm tired of South Africa. I just want to be on a flight. Or I want to be in America. But I'm like, okay, those are all nice, but those are not necessarily reasons that would get you to go abroad. Prof spoke at the beginning about the importance of, doing research and stuff like that. So there's requirements that you have to look at. There's research. You need to research. You need to be able to know the country that you're going to, because we make decisions out of the blue to say, oh, I wake up one morning and I decide I want to study abroad. Why do you want to study abroad? What are the benefits of you studying abroad? So we do research. There's things to consider, like the weather, for example. The food that you get to eat there. There's some countries, I was telling students, they laugh. I'm like, there's some countries where you don't get meat at all. You're eating vegetables the entire time. Are you going to be able to handle that? And then secondly, we look at the eligibility criteria. I encourage students to take up these opportunities because they often have an age limit. So it's often up until 35. Some are lenient and they go to 45, but mostly it's 35. So you're still young, take up these opportunities. The documentation is very important. We look at the motivational letter, the academic performance, the leadership or community involvement that you have. So while you're in university, do not just focus on the academic part of it. What is it else that you're doing around, to build yourself as a person? Because once you get abroad, you need to be able to be open to dealing with different types of people, leadership and community-wise. And then you need to look at the host institution or the country that you're going to. The most important one is cultural shock. A lot of students often want to go abroad, but when they get that side, they get a huge cultural shock just to see how the country that they're in is different from South Africa. Some students even get a nervous breakdown and want to come back to South Africa because they did not have, the ideal motivation. Why is it that they wanted to go abroad? And then it is important to do academic planning. While you're still studying, make sure your academics are right, because it would be senseless for us to send somebody who's already struggling in South Africa to send them abroad to a different environment, to a totally new country, and we expect them that they will be performing that side. So it is important to consider those things.
Sure. So ladies and gents, there you have it. But so once I feel I have checked these boxes and I want to start applying. What are the things that I need to do as part of prepping myself for this application process?
Great question. I often say to students, this is when I'm speaking to undergraduate students now, because I like encouraging them from an undergraduate stage, because these opportunities are mostly for masters and PhD. I think Prof mentioned that after your bachelor's, you can do your master's. That is international universities. So all over around the world, the concept of honors does not exist. So international universities have 4-year degrees, and then you get to move over to masters. So it's exactly like our law degree right here. Mm-hmm. So what you need to do, you need to prepare beforehand. I always say prepare 6 months prior to look at your academic transcripts. You need to get reference letters. Make sure that there's 2 people, they can be your lecturers or your academic people that you have. Look, they can give you 2 references. You need to have a personal statement or motivation. Your motivation needs to show why is it that you are intending to study abroad. It needs to be concrete, your personal statement. Then we need to have a detailed study plan or your proposal. What is it that you want to study when you go abroad? What is it that you're looking to study? I think Prof mentioned that she wanted to look at Germany and South Africa. Yeah. So that is like a contract. Yeah. So you need to study, you need to do your research in terms of what is it that you want to study, and whatever that you're studying, is it a global issue? Is it something, because you can't apply, for example, to Campus France to study in France, but you want to research a problem that only is suited to South Africa. Mm-hmm. So you need to do your research and see if these are the issues that France is dealing with. Is there comparison with regards to South Africa, or is there a difference, or is France performing better in terms of, or they have solutions in terms of this issue that you are suggesting, and so forth. So our office, we offer guidance throughout the application process, right? So these opportunities, we manage them, and then we offer guidance. This includes information sessions. We often have information sessions. I often have one-on-one advising with the students. Take a look at their CVs, advise on their motivational letters, and if be it so, get one of the academics in the specialized field to look at their proposal and see if this is a proposal worthy of the scholarship that they are applying for.
So it sounds like the student will not be traveling this journey alone as they prepare to take advantage of the scholarship. One last thing I want to find out from you, you've worked with quite a number of students who've been successful in obtaining these opportunities. What are some of those success stories that you can share with us?
We've got a lot of success stories. So we've had a number of students who've traveled abroad. I am one of the success stories. I've traveled abroad too. So I went to America last year. I was awarded a professional program. I was actually nominated by the US consulate to participate in a program that is hosted in the US. So they noted all my work that I was doing and the services that I was providing, and they decided I would be great representation to represent South Africa in that platform. But as for the students, we've had quite a number of students. I don't know if we have like 2 minutes. I think I sent Bonolo a video. I wanted the students to look at that video so that they can be inspired to see some of the students that went to Spain, and some of them went to Germany, and the food that they ate. One of our students that we had also went to Austria. He got an opportunity to finish his last semester of his honors in Austria. And after finishing, he got an opportunity to pursue his master's after that. So like we said, these opportunities open up a lot of opportunities for you after that. Like they don't stop coming, these opportunities, once you've tapped into the global world. So yeah, if we've got 2 minutes, then Bonolo can just play the video for the students to. I think students relate better to students. If I'm telling them, they won't believe me, but if they see the students, then they believe it's doable and it's attainable.
Video. So while we wait for Nolo to launch the video for us, can we so if students want to get a hold of you, we've got students that I know you're based on the Bloemfontein campus. We've got students on the Kwakwa South campus. How can students get in touch with your office and communicate with you around opportunities?
Okay, so students, first of all, we are on social media, Facebook, OIA, Office for International Affairs, as well as Instagram. I will drop down my email address in the email, and my colleague as well that I work with. And then I am always open to one-on-one sessions. Should students want to consult with me, just drop me an email and let me know that I'm always on campus. Otherwise, those who are on the Kwakwa campus, we always have virtual online sessions with them, as well as the South campus. Yeah. And then we are located at the Theology Building, second floor. Even if you feel like popping up, you have 2 minutes to spend between your classes and you want to pop up. I'm located at the Theology Building, second floor, room 212.
Well, I didn't know that. I thought you're still here behind education
No.
at Mabaleng. All right, we have the video ready for Nola?
Yes.
Like this. The Office of International Affairs at the University of the Free State offers you a student exchange mobility program that lets you study abroad for a period of a few weeks to a full year. We offer exchanges at over 100 partner universities globally, enhancing your academic acumen, leadership skills, and intercultural understanding. It is a life-changing experience.
Spain.
I went to Spain.
Germany.
Germany.
Churros and hot chocolate.
Napolitana con crema.
Schnitzel.
Schnitzels.
There are a lot of open markets that sell fresh food.
Spain's time zone is incorrectly set to that of Germany's.
Celebrating the Christmas season through the enchanting atmosphere of the Christmas market.
It was the Christmas tree for me. I learned that the Christmas tree originated from Germany.
A different environment can change how you think about different aspects of life, including education.
I learned to cook croquetas, I learned to take the metro train, and I also learned how to become a global citizen.
In Germany, people are punctual, so I realized the importance of valuing punctuality, and also I developed a sense of independence.
The German straightforwardness amazed me. If the answer is yes, they will say yes. But if the answer is no, they will also tell you sorry. You cannot help.
It's a great opportunity to form networks that can possibly bring about multidisciplinary projects and also lifelong friendships with people from all over the world.
You're in your 20s, you're living in a beautiful European city, and you're also fully funded. It's honestly the best way and time to travel.
You get the opportunity to establish social network with diverse groups of people, specifically abroad. And also the learning environment and the trips offered allows you to expand and explore knowledge.
To learn intercultural competence, which is learning how to build relationships with people from various cultures.
They help me gain independence, comfort, and confidence for future international trip preparations.
Excellent. They coordinated everything for me, and they even shipped my USS exam scripts to Spain.
They really helped us with the administration preparations for Germany.
They helped me with support. They made me to feel at ease during my preparations to travel abroad, and they also linked me to a psychologist to overcome my mental health, such as anxiety.
Look out for email communication about student exchange mobility opportunities during March and July of each year. We cannot wait to let you experience the world.
There you have it, University of the Free State students. The study abroad opportunities are endless. And Olebogeng, thank you so much for sharing this. I hope you're going to have enough time for all the amount of students that will be coming to visit your campus. I think some of the staff members that are joining might as well. They are under 30, so I think you're going to have quite a lot for that. So thank you. We'll catch up with you in a few minutes now in our Q&A segment. Ladies and gents, we're now moving to Olebogeng, and we have our last poll that will pop up. To Lebogang, sorry. We have our last poll that pops up, and we want to find out what stage are you at in your career journey. You are focused on studying only, you just exploring, or you not sure. Which one of these best represent your answer? I've just clicked mine and submitted mine, so let us hear from you. So there we go. Lebogang, thank you so much for joining. I see you've got two names, Tutor and Lebogang. Which one do you prefer?
Well, I prefer Tutor because that's the most conversational name I go by. The school calls me Lebogang, or the university calls me Lebogang, but I believe my friends and family call me Tutor.
All right, so we'll stick to Tutor for today. So tell us a little bit, you are quite a well-rounded student that has explored so much and taken advantage of their journey here at the University of the Free State. Tell us about how did you balance your responsibilities as a student, keeping the main thing, while working as a tutor. And then lastly, what did you learn from that experience?
You see, balancing being a tutor as well as being a student, it goes beyond the mere time management. The general, answer is that you must be able to manage your time, but managing your time only helps you with what needs to be done and when it needs to be done. But what about the quality of the work? What about the essence about it? I believe that aspect is properly solved through being able to be self-aware. Now, what self-awareness does essentially is you will be able to know your character, know your strengths, your weaknesses, so that when you start managing your time properly, you will be able to achieve your goals in a timely manner, but also maintaining a high quality. Let's give an example. If you're going to write a test this Friday, and let's say there are 5 chapters in the test and you want to prepare, you would perhaps say that's 1 chapter a day. That is time management. But if you are not self-aware, you wouldn't understand that, okay, it takes me about 2 days to be able to be concrete about a particular chapter. So now being self-aware will help you prioritize your time properly. But there are other methods like using, the Pomodoro technique to be able to prioritize your time. If you know you're an individual that is able to focus for 50 minutes, I use the 50-minute Pomodoro technique. I'm able to focus for 50 minutes, a break in 10 minutes. That will be able to help me, push certain content within a specific period of time. But it really goes like there's many ways that you can accomplish being able to balance your work, but really the essence is being self-aware. Are you aware of your capabilities? Do you know how to accomplish them properly, not just merely time manage? Time management is this. I have a timetable. I'm not sure if you can see it, but this timetable essentially tells me what I should do. At 8, I have this class. At 9, I'm doing a break study session between this time. That is time management, but this will just be a useless misrepresentation pasted on a wall if I'm not aware of my capabilities and my strengths. So all around, when I'm saying time management is the key in balancing my tutoring and my schoolwork, you need to not only manage your time, but you need to be self-aware. And of course, create a priority tier list. A priority tier list is if, for instance, you have 10 tasks to be done. In my instance, I tutor 3 modules in 2 different faculties, and I'm doing an LLB program that has 11 essentially modules. So if you can think, this year, I have about 14 modules that I have to be doing. How do I possibly manage this time? I have to set aside, based on my capabilities, what I can accomplish in certain times. From there, I then assign different timeframes in each particular module, knowing that I'll be able to do the maximum capabilities and achieve high quality work from that standard. So overall, how was I able to balance my schoolwork as well as my other extracurricular activities was through effective time management properly implemented by being self-aware.
Tato, I kicked off our conversation very selfishly and wrongly, and I didn't even ask you to introduce yourself to the audience. I think I've gotten so familiar to working with you that I'd forgotten that, you know what, our audience still needs to get to know you. So you spoke about the fact that you're studying LLB. So what did you do? What did you study? What are you doing at the university? And what does your life, a typical week in your life look like?
Yes, yes. No, I mean, even my manners, where my manners, I must start first by acknowledging my, exceptional co-panelists that were giving us insightful, information, quite insightful and very motivational. I know after here, I'll be going to the international office myself because I definitely want to gain more information. But, and also good afternoon to the fellow attendees in this particular event. So I am essentially doing my LLB program post my BCom Law qualification. So I started doing my BCom Law qualification, a 3-year qualification, and extended into the LLB program. So essentially that program makes you do an LLB program for 2 years instead of 4 years. So essentially in a 5-year period, I would have had my BCom Law qualification and my LLB qualification within a period of 5 years. Essentially, that's why I am doing. But besides schoolwork, I am a senior tutor with the Academic Student Tutorial and Excellence Program, tutoring 3 modules, or essentially 4 modules within 2 faculties, microeconomics and macroeconomics in the EMS faculty, as well as legal foundations of South Africa and law of persons within the law faculty. That is essentially what I do, throughout the entire week. Wake up, prepare for my day, set my tutorials, do my session plans, go to class, and, of course, have time to myself where I get to rest, chill with my friends, do other things besides schoolwork. That's essentially me in a nutshell.
So you're quite someone that is busy from what I can hear.
Yes.
You also were the chairperson of APSIP. Can you share how your experience as chairperson has influenced your leadership style and also shaped your approach to career growth?
Right. So I was the chairperson, our former chairperson in the 2024 term for the Association of Black Securities and Investment Professionals, an association that created an environment of choice for students that want to venture into the financial industry. So people like Ms. Olebogeng, we're essentially creating environments to engage within experts like Ms. Lebogang to encourage us into entering into their particular field. But as I was the chair of that organization, I was a charismatic as well as a democratic chairperson, charismatic in the way that I was influential, not only to my team, but also to the people that I led. So that brought morale high within whatever we were doing. And besides that, I was also democratic in nature. I'm not trying to be this individual that sets a direction my way or the highway type. I was not that type of leader. I was a leader that always wanted to engage with the organization, with the constituency, and ensure that their opinion is heard. The nice thing about me being in that environment is it actually helped me realize that any organization, regardless of what career path, law, medicine, you will work in a team. And being able to be, work well with your colleagues within a team will ensure that whatever activity, whatever project that you're doing, the best results come out, and not just mediocrity results where you're just doing the bare minimum. You're going far and beyond, but that only is possible if you are working well in a team. And also understanding that as much as you are a leader, you're not the superior king, or you're not the individual that must always just give the direction and not give consensus with regards to what must be done with your fellow teammates. So it really encouraged me, and I understood team dynamics and working with people, and how that will be, an instrumental key skill that I'll be able to implement when I get into the organizations or other institutions in the future.
That is really, really great. And what I'm hearing from you are the University of the Free State graduate attributes being articulated there. What advice would you give to your fellow students who wish to be student leaders, but you know what, they're scared that, listen, I'm focused on my academics, don't want to rock the boat. What advice would you give to them?
You know, the exact reason why you are scared is why you should be a leader. Being a leader takes you out of this stigma of, yo, I'm shy, I can't really speak in front of people, I can't articulate myself. Being a leader actually places the environment for you to be able to train those particular skills. You won't get those skills anywhere because, I mean, even in class, the lecturer asks you a question, you don't engage in class, you don't engage in tutorials. Where else are you going to be able to learn public speaking? Where else are you going to be able to engage with other people of like-minded individuals? Being a leader, regardless of whether you are in top as in chairperson or just a general subcommittee member, participating in extracurricular activities is of great importance in your development because it increases your confidence. It ensures that you network horizontal because there's such a thing as horizontal networking where you network with your fellow peers to be able to engage in critical thinking and thought leadership. That is only or really possible in those types of environments. But also, guys, being a leader is nice. There are benefits with being a leader. Let me speak for myself. When I was the chair of ABSEP UFS, number one, I got the chance to go to Sandton, all expenses paid, staying in a hotel for their economic endeavor, which is their yearly annual economic endeavor taking place in Sandton. In that institution, in that event, I was able to engage with different key institutional leaders, literally from all of the institutions within the financial industry, Nedbank, Standard Bank, all of, literally picture every institution within the financial industry, all of their key leaders were there. And now you're given this platform to be able to sit with the people that will soon be your employers. What do you do? If you were just an individual that was not able to articulate yourself, represent yourself as a key individual, you will just sit, you will listen, and you'll leave without getting, networks with that individual. Hence why it starts with, engaging in these sessions, engaging in subcommittee training, engaging in being a leader, even at lower levels, so that you can learn how to articulate yourself. Once you are in these big rooms, you are able to also stand out and not just be an individual. But besides being able to get an all expenses paid trip to Sandton, I was also literally paid by the school. I was given a Student Affairs Leadership and Achievement Award of the value of 6,000 Rand straight into my bank account, just because I have contributed or was recognized for contributing to the student community and student leaders community as one of the great leaders coming out of the 2024 term, the Student Association Achievement Awards. That on its own, and it came between the 10th of October. There I was just going home. Now I'm going home with money. I can start assisting, December, what happens in December. But besides that, of course, December I was starting to assist at home, patch up where it needs to be patched up. Now I'm taking on responsibilities at home. They can actually say, no, we've sent our son to university. He's coming back not only as a learned individual, but he's coming back and able to impact our lives in a positive manner and actually bring about change. Student leaders actually gives you the environment to do that. So I don't know what you need more. You need to engage in student leaders, whether it is at your residence, whether it is in association, whether it is in all types of sectors. You need to engage in leadership. It is beneficial, and trust me, I'm benefiting from it till now.
There you have it, from the horse's mouth. At least we get paid to tell you to participate. Lebogang has had the perfect experience. Tutor has had the perfect experience, and he has been able to inform you. I hope you save some of that 6,000 rands. Otherwise, kilo blesaka Olebogeng.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, and we are looking forward to engaging with you in our Q&A. Ladies and gents, we've reached our Q&A segment. I know it is a little bit later than we wanted you have an opportunity to ask our speakers a question. Please do remember that although Mathebula is on the platform, she won't be able to take questions. However, we will ask so that you can by email should there be a need. If you have a question that you'd like to ask, this opportunity to raise your virtual hand. And what will happen is that our technical team will enable your microphone. So please raise your virtual hand. And once you have been acknowledged, we will enable your microphone and ask you to proceed with your question. Let us see. I'm going to check from my side. Are there any questions for our panelists today? I can't see anything from our technical team. I can't see anything in our Q&A segment. Do we have any virtual hands that are up? Remember, this is your opportunity to ask these very, very, very well-experienced people questions. If you have one, you don't have to wait for the email. We have Tato. Tato, you want to share something before we take a question?
Yes, I have a question. I'm not sure if I can just wait for, but let's let the guest speak first, then will come to me.
We'll do that. Let's see. Nolutando, you have your hand up. Your microphone has been enabled. Remember to unmute and ask your question.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. I wanted to ask with regards to like if you've been doing like, what is it called? We call it being a DME here at UFS, the student assistant. Yes. So if you like apply for like graduate programs or things like when you have to put things on your CV and maybe you don't have like experience, like maybe you went from high school to university, but then you have been a DME like for maybe 2 modules. Could that be something that you put as work experience?
That's a good question. So can we take that? So any from our panelists, as soon as we give an opportunity for responses, any of our panelists can respond to that. The student is asking, can they list their student jobs as formal experience in their CVs? And I want to add maybe to that question, how can one make sure that those skills or opportunities stand out or the experience stands out in the CV? The second person we have, just want to check. I'm working on one screen, which is something I'm completely not used to. You can unmute your microphone, and that is Pumelele. Pumelele, please unmute your microphone and you can ask your question.
Hi, thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity. This question is posed to Ms. Moiketsi, and I wanted to ask her if, well, I am an education student, right, and I'm doing my final year. I've had experience being a teacher a little bit as a part-time job. Would that count one as leadership skills, right? And then also, I wanted to ask if when applying for master's programs, you obviously have to have like research whatevers. I think I would really like to go to China to just research further about the decolonization of education, since they kind of have like a footprint of, no, a blueprint of how that looks like and how it could possibly be translated to our education system in South Africa. Does she think that like that would be a good motivation to go that side? And yeah, basically just those kind of stuff.
Okay. Mbali, did you hear that, or is there a question that you'd like us to, or is there clarity that's needed?
No, I got that. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I think those are the two questions. Any of our panelists can take the first two questions. Does Deming and being a student assistant count as work experience? And then how can we highlight that in our CVs? Olebogeng, do you want to tackle that one?
Yes, and I see Mbali also had her hand up. So just my personal experience, guys, you won't believe I applied for a job a couple of weeks ago, and I have stated that I was a student assistant. So I think really don't ever underestimate the skills that you acquire from any kind of job that you do. It's imperative that you list it in your resume.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. And I mean, it makes a huge difference. Prof, you also want to highlight, come in there?
Thank you.
Yes, so I absolutely agree that you shouldn't underestimate bits and pieces of work that you do while you're a student, because it shows that, as one of our previous speakers, sorry, I wasn't paying too much close attention to everybody's names, but it was mentioned by various speakers that it's important to focus on more than just the academic stuff. So if you can show and demonstrate that while you were studying, you were involved in activities that are related to your studies, but adjacent to them. So it shows that you're able to multitask, that you're able to apply what you're learning in different fields. The only thing that I would emphasize is to be clear about what that role entailed, because it might be obvious to you what being a demi is, but you need to articulate it. So describe in 1 or 2 sentences some of the key functions, what you were responsible for, what you did, so that it's easy for the person who's perusing your CV to tell, oh, okay, this person actually did something that's relevant to research, or they did something that's relevant to leadership, because they'll have a description of what you actually did. So be descriptive. Don't be too brief about what that role entailed.
While I have you, does that also count for volunteering? Because I know some people feel I was just volunteering over the holiday period, and therefore it's not something worth putting in my CV. Mbali, do you want to jump on there?
Yes. Thank you so much. Just to add on what the colleagues have said, I am a testament to the student. I was also a demi from second year onwards, and I was also a tutor. So right after I graduated, I applied for a temporary job here at the University of the Free State for capturing, and I was hired immediately after graduating because of that experience that I had of deming. So deming is not just a thing that you do at the university. It is considered an experience and a job. And before my contract ended, I was actually given a permanent contract.
Sure.
Based on what I had already learned as a student. So, like I said, I always encourage students that when they get into the university, don't just focus on your academic endeavors, but there is other things to experience as well. Like our previous speaker, he spoke about how he got into these other things that were actually beneficial for him, that got him a little money on the extra as well. So it's very important for students to take part in these. I also volunteered. I think it played a role because during my last semester, I used to volunteer at this certain company for like a few hours. So I think that, coupled with me being a student assistant, really played a role in me getting the job at the University of the Free State. So I encourage students to do so as well. Globally, I've seen with countries all over the world, they actually introduce this at primary stage, where they get students to start doing little work over the weekends, to equip them for the future. They don't wait up until you're finished with your tertiary only for you to get an experience. So yeah, I would encourage students to volunteer, to take up anything that is available at the university.
And while we have you, can we then touch on the questions that Pumelele also asked around student leadership and also the exchange to China around decoloniality? Mbali, did we lose you? Oh man. Okay, we missed Mbali. Mbali. I hope it's not the network. The network has been a bit wonky today. We're going to take a few more questions. I see we do have a few more questions also. I just want to see who we have here. So, Gaugelo, you more than Mikateko, yes, you can jump in and then we'll take a question from Gaugelo.
Yes, I thought I might jump in on the question about studying in China and a fascination or interest in researching decoloniality and doing a kind of comparative thing, and if that's a worthwhile motivation for studying abroad. The quick answer would be yes. I think if you can provide that kind of motivation, you can write it down, have a few sentences where you describe these aspects of your interest. That will go a long way in showing anyone who reviews your application that you have thought about this, that you have interest, and that you've already almost identified a potential area of research that you can pursue in your postgraduate studies. So to me, that sounds viable. And I would definitely be interested in talking to someone who said to me, I want to do research and look into decoloniality and reflect on examples of what's happening abroad and so on. So that sounds like a compelling argument for me.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you for taking that one, Mika. Let's jump. Gaugelo, your microphone has been enabled. You are. You can ask a question.
Good afternoon. In terms of taking part in student activities, student jobs, I've realized that is very important. But for me, when I started my undergrad, I did not participate in anything because I just wanted to pass. And then I went in for masters. I was just focusing on research. I also just wanted to pass. And then when I went for PhD, I was working. So it was also a matter of just passing. So now I'm a newly graduate for doctorate, and then I left my job, came to the university for postdoc. And so I feel like after heard what Prof has said, I feel like maybe I need to have a one-on-one conversation with Prof. Maybe she can guide me on how I can navigate, because having not participated in student jobs is also a disadvantage for me. So I will always advise undergrad students to participate in student jobs, because it will open opportunities for them.
Absolutely agree with you. Thank you so much for highlighting that. Prof, are you willing to maybe give us your email in the chat for those who would like to engage with you in this instance?
Yes, I'm doing so. I'm typing it into the chat right now. So anyone who's got questions related to the things that you might need to keep in mind or to beef up your CV for pursuing an academic career, including those people who have done BSOC SCs or a very broad or general social science degree, and you're not sure about what to do next, you're welcome to get in touch with me. You can send me an email. I'm at Benita Kotseng building, which is just adjacent to the Center for Graduate Support. But if you drop me an email, I'm happy to welcome you to my office and to have a chat. Thanks.
There you have it. We are networking you, networking the unnetworked. Prof, thank you so much for that. We'll take the next hand. Kutlwano, your microphone has been enabled. Please unmute and ask your question. Kutlwano, can you hear us? Okay, we're going to move over to Happy. Happy, your microphone has also been enabled. You can ask your question.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
You are audible.
Thank you. I have earphones on, so I was worried a bit. Thank you. I wanted to ask Olebogeng a question. I heard she spoke about the young professionals bank account from Standard Bank, and I've been doing a bit of research on that. Well, actually not research, word of mouth. Someone told me that they usually give them to people who are in certain professions. Like for instance, if you are a lawyer or a chartered accountant, not necessarily if you are a young adult and are starting to work. I wanted to know, someone maybe who is an administrator, for instance, can you be able to get access to getting one? And what the criteria is? Basically, do they look at the age group, or do they look at the salary or the profession? And also, I would like to ask her, like, how do you position yourself, especially if you are maybe looking into breaking into finance, especially in banking, maybe as a risk analyst, for instance? What are they looking for, and how do you position yourself, to looking, and how do you get also access to networking events? I know that banks host a lot of networking events. How do I get a hold of them? How do I get, how do I position myself basically in those environments? And lastly, is she open to mentoring? Yeah, that's my last question. Thank you.
Thank you, Happy. Happy, you my girl. Like, you pack all your questions. You want to make sure you leave here. You leave with the bag secured. Olebogeng, those are your three questions. So what's the criteria for your the banking products, particularly if they are not in a professional qualification? And then how do you get into banking? So how do you best position yourself? And lastly, are you open to mentoring?
Sure. Cool. Thank you so much for those questions, Happy. I'm happy to answer. So who's eligible? So we've got a set of qualifications that we look at. So the qualifying criteria is based on your qualification and not on income, like most financial or other financial institutions. And then you need to be at least below the ages of 35 or 34, in fact. Although on our website, it does list that you need to be below the ages of 30. But when we have a conversation with you and try and understand the problems you are trying to solve, we then get to see if the solution will best fit what it is that you're trying to solve. So in your instance, Happy, you're welcome just to reach out to me. I'll drop my email address and contact details, and we can conversate further. Because I mean, for some people, I must be honest, you find that the income is there, right? Someone has got a good income, but then from a qualification perspective, it's something that maybe we are not looking at, but the income does form as the motivation, and we are able to get dispensation to offer you to have the opportunity to be on our professional banking offering. And then in terms of positioning yourself, getting into the financial industry, oh my, you know what, Happy? If I think back at my journey, I remember sitting as a research assistant in the Landbou building. I would just sit on the internet and apply everywhere. And I remember the first actual formal interview that I got was at Nedbank, just across the waterfront. And I went in there. And for me, I think the other thing is what I'm also I should note that I'm quite impressed about is that you have an idea of what the banking world looks like, which I didn't have an idea at all. I just applied for whatever role they called me. I went to go speak. And lo and behold, as I was walking out of the venue, gosh, guys, I tumbled down the stairs. Yo, in heels. But anyway, fortunately, I did not get hurt. And well, Nedbank lost out because I went over to Standard Bank. But I think the thing to do is, one, you need to be confident in yourself. I think the thing that I've also picked up is that corporates are not necessarily looking at just the qualification aspect of things. You need to have a teachable spirit. You need to present yourself really well too, and I think another thing is that you need to also have an open mind. And I think that's the other thing that has also helped me advance in my career a lot, because I would go in such spaces where I did not know much, but I would, to some extent, contribute the little that, I could, but then also give and show off that, I'm willing to learn. That's interesting. Please tell me more, And I think once you start networking and all of those things, that will really, really help a lot. Mentoring. Shoo.
It's a yes.
You know what? I'll be more than happy to do that for you, Happy.
Thank you so much for that. Olebogeng, can I ask that you maybe then for our audience that would like to get in contact with you around the financial products, financial advising, professional banking, those of us who might just want to switch banks, move from the green and teal bank to the blue bank, how can we get a hold of you? Please look out for Olebogeng's details in the chat. Ladies and gents, they do say it. Time runs out when you're having a lot of fun, and this has been such an impactful conversation. I firstly want to extend a huge big gratitude to our panelists. These are very busy people in their schedules, and this is one of the forms in which they give back to our student community at the University of the Free State. So a huge thank you. And I'd like to say, remember, if you've missed out on this conversation, it is recorded. We'll be putting it up on our YouTube page. If we didn't get your questions, you can send it to us at securethegrad@ufs.ac.za. Alternatively, reach out to our speakers individually. They'll be more than happy to talk to you. Also remember to follow us on Instagram. Our handle is securethegrad. We also everywhere. So for those of you who wanted to find out about tutoring opportunities, remember that you can contact us. Please stay tuned to see where you can contact us. And also there's Career Hub for all the opportunities of student employment at the UFS. We have what we call the graduate positioning support. That is GPS. Those are success coaches that reach out to you. They've called you. So please, when they call, do answer. These are people that are targeted on providing you one-on-one academic support, general academic advising, and also making sure you're on track to graduate and that you do not drop out or are at the risk of failing and being academically excluded. You can reach out to them telephonically. Their details are there. Option 2, alternatively, email them gps@ufs.ac.za. Also, they're on WhatsApp, Kofsi Chat 087-240-6370. And these are friendly success coaches that are making sure that you reach destination graduation. Academic advising is also there for you if you need a one-on-one, those time management skills, or you want to change qualifications or link your qualification to a career. Our friendly advisors are there on the respective campuses. You can reach out to them also on WhatsApp, via Facebook. And those of you who are interested in tutoring opportunities, reach out to us, astep@ufs.ac.za. Few tutoring positions might be opening up, so be on the lookout. Career Hub, ladies and gents. Like I said, we want to know whether this webinar was a hit or a miss, or maybe there are a few topics you'd like us to explore. Please give us feedback. The link will be in your chat as well as in your emails. The session is recorded, and remember to follow us on Instagram. This is the time where we want to announce our winners for today. Congratulations to Orekgopotse, Ultimate, and Dikgwehle. Retabile. So please make sure that you reach out to us. Send us an email saying STG webinar winner. That's the subject line, STG webinar winner. In the email body, please indicate your name and surname, student number, your contact details, and where we can get a hold of you. And our team will be in contact on where and how you can collect your prize. Congratulations. And for the rest of you, thank you so much for engaging with us. Remember, we've got our last webinar for the semester coming up. On the 15th of May, it's important that we talk to you about healthy habits and how you can maintain a balanced lifestyle in securing your grad and securing the back. And from me, Evodia, and the rest of our technical team, as well as our panel, a huge thank you, and see you at our next webinar, as well as on Instagram. Bye-bye.